Great shot. How close were you? If you're a wildlife photographer and you post your images on social media, there's a good chance you've seen that comment underneath one of your images. And if you're like me, that comment has a tendency to produce some anxiety. In this video, I want to talk about why, and if you stick with me, I want to share some ways that we can respond in an appropriate way to that comment on social media. So why does that question produce anxiety? Well, for the average person looking at your images online, they don't have an understanding of the technicalities of wildlife photography and the field craft that is involved with it. And they're really just wanting to understand the adventure that you were on. I had someone recently ask me about my millimeter length, and I really don't think the common person is going to understand how close a 400, 500, 600, whatever it might be lens is going to get you to your subject. They also aren't going to understand crop sensors or full frame or micro four thirds or cropping an image in the editing process. So I think it's really just a genuine question to understand the adventure that you were on. So why does it produce anxiety? Well, I feel a responsibility to respond to people whenever they comment on my images. And if you're an ethical wildlife photographer, you're probably an honest person. And you don't want to mislead someone. You don't maybe want to be general. You want to give them the specific information, but sometimes the specific information could be misleading. So as wildlife photographers, not only do we have that technical knowledge that I was just talking about, but we have a field craft. Many of us have been out in the field photographing wildlife for years, and you have become knowledgeable about the animals that you shoot. You understand in certain situations, you're able to actually be a little bit closer than normal. You have a field craft. You might maybe be undercover. You might be hidden so the animal is not intimidated, maybe doesn't even know that you're there. There are definitely times, I'm sure, in your photography where you have been in a situation, you could tell that maybe your presence was stressing out the animal. So what did you do? You backed away. Maybe you even left. So there are a lot of situations that are kind of hard to just tell someone, I was 20 feet from this bird, or I was 50 feet from this bear, or whatever it might be. Also, I run into situations where there is maybe a bit of habituation, maybe even location habituation. So animals in particular settings are used to people. So those animals you're able to be much, much closer to than if I would venture back into this woods back here and find a critter. For example, I love to shoot white-tailed deer. There are several parks that I can go to, and I know that the deer are not going to be intimidated by my presence. If I went into these woods behind me and I saw a deer, it wouldn't stick around very long, and I probably wouldn't even be able to get a shot off. So it's hard to explain to someone in a Facebook comment some of these things like that to give them an idea of habituation, of focal length, of cropping. All of these things come into play. And what I worry about is if I would say to someone, yes, I was 30 feet from this bear or something of that nature, well, then that is making people think that they can get that close to any animal that they might see. That's making people think that they can go into a national park like what we see on Torons of Yellowstone, the Instagram account, it's great. And you see people trying to basically pet a bison, and that's not at all what any of us want to promote. We want to do this in a safe way. And I think that our comments on these types of comments that you might get on your images can do that in a very positive way. So I want to share with you some ways that we can educate people by being honest, but also not kind of promoting getting close without some understanding and knowledge and experience out in the field. So I have some replies that I'm going to share with you that you can feel free to use on your social media accounts. But before I do that, if you're getting value out of this video, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps out my channel. So before I share those comments with you, something that I thought that I'm going to try to do sometimes is maybe share a before the crop and an after the crop image. Now, honestly, I'm going to wait maybe until I have an image that I did actually crop a lot, and I really try to avoid cropping too much. But if there's an instance where I did crop in a lot, it might be really powerful to show how much we actually use that technique in our images to show people that we are actually pretty far back. So that's one way maybe to promote and educate the public on the idea of wanting to stay further back. So here are some phrases that you can use when responding to comments like, "How close were you?" First, you could say, "I always make sure to keep a respectful distance for both my safety and the animal's well-being." That's a pretty straightforward, kind comment that will show people that you are an ethical photographer and that you're not encroaching on the subject's space. Number two, it's all about finding the right spot and waiting for the perfect moment. Number three, I let the animals be themselves and give them plenty of space. Patience does the rest. This one is probably my favorite one. The best shots come when you stay back and let the animal act naturally. That's just such a great response because it shows people that you're willing to stay back and capture natural behavior. Again, these comments are promoting people whenever they are interacting with wildlife that they're going to maybe operate in an ethical way the same way that you do. The beauty of wildlife photography is capturing these moments without disrupting the animal's environment. Very similar to the last one, again, a great way to promote ethical behavior. And lastly, being patient and giving animals their space usually leads to the best photos. So I think that these responses are kind and they also educate to show people that it's okay to stay back, that you don't need to take out your cell phone and get right into a critter space, and that probably by doing so, you're going to have a better viewing experience. You're going to have better interactions with wildlife, and you're going to see them acting naturally. There's nothing worse than setting up for a shot, being ready, and if you're experienced, you know which way the animal is going to go many times. You can predict that because of your field craft. You've been out there with these critters and you know what their behaviors are. Only to have someone step in front of you or step near the animal and cause it to change course because of the human interference. I hope that you'll maybe copy some of these comments and use them on your social media accounts. As wildlife photographers, I think it's incumbent upon us to try to educate the public as best as we can in the kindest way possible. So I'd love to hear any replies that you use to a similar comment on your social media accounts. Share those down in the comments below because that's really going to benefit our community of wildlife photographers as we endeavor to educate and inform the public without putting them down. If you got value out of this video, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps out the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.